Third time's a charm. Keep trying to record this video, but it's too long. So cutting things down, just giving you only the need to know information. We're wrapping up a 3 video series on the solo DIY kit TBBK-1. It's knockoff Thunderbird, build it yourself kit. The last video we were routing out pickup cavities. We were doing the black grain stain. So what has been done now, the black has been sanded back, then red was added, then we did varathane urethane spray over the top, then we modded some electronics, and what we have, I'll just get straight into it, is for the electronics, these are coil taps. So in the vertical leaning position, both this Nord strand and this Nord strand are in series, giving you a classic humbucker. These are in series, giving you a classic humbucker. When you flip them down, you are canceling out this pickup, so only this one is now contributing sound, and then you're canceling this coil, and this coil right here is the only one giving sound. That gives you a more jazz-based sound. We have electronics the way I like to do them, where you have a blend between the pickups with a center point where they're equally contributing to the sound, a volume. Here we have a bass cut if you turn it forward, and a normal treble knob if you turn it backwards. A little growl knob using diodes to give a passive, kind of old school style distortion sound. That is not how the guitar comes stock. That was something I modded. Good fun, and increases the versatility of the instrument for recording purposes, which is the whole point of this project in the first place. Let's now talk neck issues. So, in my opinion, it's kind of unforgivable, the neck and the head for this guitar. If this wasn't a problem, this would have 100% like, this is a good kit stamp. So first off, the headstock is not very attractive. The holes are positioned poorly, so no matter which way the string wraps around the tuning pegs, the strings will be pulling either downwards or they'll be pulling upwards on the nut. They're not able to actually just go straight through the nut. That's a big no-no. Next up, if your headstock doesn't look like your classic Thunderbird, then it's not a Thunderbird neck. So it doesn't belong on this guitar, in my opinion. For the neck issues, we had a couple issues. Biggest one for me is the truss rod. The truss rod only acts on these last 5 frets or so, and does not do any straightening down here. What does that mean? If you have thicker gauge strings, it's going to pull and give you a little bit of bow in this section of the neck that you will not be able to get rid of. And that puts a limit on either the action lower limit you can get or the string thickness that you can achieve, and that is also unforgivable. Next up, we're talking about tone. Like in the tone of the instrument, it's more clear and you can tell what's going on with it. It, along with the original Epiphone Thunderbird, had an issue with note clarity from the E string. This has been eradicated, but not from something I've modded, just simply a different set of strings. So if you can take a look down here, you can see right here it's still pretty thin, and then it gets thick. Thin, thick, thin, thick. So these are a set of strings from the company SIT, which is Stay in Tune, and the set is called taper wound, and it's specifically wound this way so the taper is not through your playing zone, so it's unaffected, won't affect your playing, but it keeps the string thin over your pole position on your bridge. What this allows is the string to ring more freely on your bridge, and that improves sustain, note clarity, tone. So this is a big win, and it's not anything that the guitars did different. It's just if you get a Thunderbird, or really if you have any instrument where you feel like those deeper strings are not as clear, I now recommend SIT strings. I'm so impressed. My intention is to have every single guitar and bass on this wall armed with SIT strings going forward. Next up, balance and ergo. So this piece that I play off of with my fingers is a piece of steel. This piece is a piece of steel. The neck location has changed for the strap, and this is just a washer as well. What this means is when you stand up, the bass does not neck dive on you anymore. It is balanced. So that's what we want from our bass, and it required adding somewhere around 2 pounds to the instrument. Not a big deal because this thing was incredibly light to begin with. Next up, comparison to the old Thunderbird. So let's go ahead, let's listen to the old Thunderbird, a couple different sounds, swap back to this bass. Here we go. All right, first topic of discussion is fret reach. The highest frets here become completely out of reach, and in order to get them, you actually have to like flatten your hand and pull your thumb out from behind the neck in order to reach them. Not a big deal on a Thunderbird, but as you'll see in a second, the new one has better reach to get to the 20th fret. Body thickness. This portion of the body is thinner on the old Epiphone style Thunderbird. And looking at it, I think the difference is that on the kit, there is no raised centerpiece in the back. And I think this thickness is just extended all the way to the outer edge, and that's why that body is thicker. Neck thickness, this neck is thinner than the kit and feels a little better to play. Next up, headstock. That's a cool headstock. That's a Thunderbird headstock. Also, all the strings are basically straight. You can see there's like a cut inwards for the E string and a cut inwards for the G string, but how it looks to me is they end up very balanced vertical, like pushing down and pushing up. They're probably even tension on the nut, so they're not trying to pull the nut horizontally out of its slot. Tone and adjustability. We shall take a listen to this guitar. So we have both humbuckers on, tone knob unadjusted, so maximum tone. It's definitely not in tune. Sorry about that. There's a heftiness to that tone, a lot of low end, a bit of distortion in there as well. This guitar is 20 years old now, and as the magnet loses its power, the clarity from the pickups will actually slowly decrease as well. So that probably has played a contributing factor into that, but to be honest, these basses have always been very dark. You can clean that up. So here I'm bringing in a bass cut. Wow. So there we're just cutting out some of the bass, and it sounds more clear. You can tell what it's trying to do. When we go to just the neck pickup, a little more hollow, but not a massive change to the sound. Just the bridge pickup. A little more bite, a little more mid-end, still very fat. Next up, both pickups on, tone turned all the way off. And that sounds very muted, right? Like there's zero top end. Like whatever capacitor they have on there is very thick. Balance and ergo, this instrument wants to neck dive on you. All right, let's go back to the other bass. Let's see how that one sounds. Due to drilling, I was able to mount the input jack on the side of the body, which I think that's a nice little plus. You can do modifications like that to a kit, whereas harder to do on a store-bought bass. It already has its holes drilled in it and all that. Both pickups as humbuckers, no changes to the tone. We're talking about fret reach. I can reach that note. It's less awkward. Still not great, but less awkward. So your 20th fret is more usable on the kit. Body thickness, so visibly thicker. No raised middle piece in the back. We already talked about how much I dislike the head, the tone, and how much we can adjust it. So let's take a listen. Much clearer, able to tell what the notes are trying to do, and that's what we like. Still a lot of low end, more than a normal jazz bass. So it's still got the fatness that you want from a Thunderbird. All right, just the neck pickup. So this is the stock pickup from the kit. That sounds a little more hollowed out. You have more highs, more lows, but not so much in the mid. A unique kind of neck pickup sound. Let's go to the bridge. So now we're on to the Nordstrand pair. That sounds more punchy to me, more mid-range as well in there, more like balanced tone. But because it is further back towards the bridge, you are getting some of that more throaty aspects of the strings, because you're picking up the sound further back towards the bridge where the strings kind of sound a little more throaty. Next up, we go back and we just turn off the tone. That one I changed up the capacitor, made it much more minor on how it impacts the sound, and so you can still tell what the note is more clearly. There's still some treble in there, but the highest parts of the treble have been reduced. Let's coil tap now. Both pickups on, so we're like jazz bass setup right now for our pickups. 2 single coils. That sound I like a lot, and that's cool. The one thing I will say is that sound is already covered by my other basses, so it's not necessarily something I was itching to get out of this bass, but it's nice to have that option, and adds a lot of clarity. So if somebody were to do this, you know, on a kit for themselves, I would definitely recommend wiring in some switches so they can have these go to single coils, and you can get a much more clear tone if you want. Just the neck pickup. Once again, kind of similar thing where it's more hollowed out sounding than both pickups together. Going back to now to just the Nordstrand. A little more mids came back in there, and kind of once again echoing a similar thing that the humbucker versions were doing as well. Let's listen to the growl knob. Interesting sound. Subtle, you know, especially in a mix with a song. If you're recording, probably most people wouldn't even detect that there's some kind of distortion on there, but it'll kind of give a thickness and compress the sound. There's a limit to how loud the notes can go while they're in distortion, and so that could be a cool thing in a recording scenario. Let's go back to the humbuckers, and let's hear what the bass cut can do to the sound. Now we're going to bring in the bass cut. So it's cutting a lot of bass out there. So you can dial that in, and usually I'm just barely turning it on. There it is. Normal. Just a little bit. And I kind of like it, just a little bit. That's like my favorite spot for it. So let's go ahead and wrap up the video. Keep it as quick and short as we can, and let's talk about things. So final thoughts on this kit for the general population. Big thumbs down for me. The reason why is there was too many issues, too many things needed to overcome in the thing. So for example, gouges that they had just filled in with poly in the body, which meant that if you're trying to do a finish like this, it requires hours and hours of work to try to make it look half decent. And if you look closely, you can still find issues. So if you look down in this crevice, it doesn't look right. Why? Because I could never get rid of the poly from that crevice because it was so deep. And that meant I couldn't get the look to be correct. Over here, right there, once again, another area where there was some kind of issue that they filled in with poly, and it's never going to look right. Luckily in the lighting right here, you can't tell, But if it's in good lighting, you can tell. So that's kind of a bummer. Neck, the truss rod adjustment, absolutely, barely. I'm barely able to get this thing working right in a way that's decent. I would say currently though this is my slowest paying bass guitar because the neck is thick and the way it adjusts is not great. Next up, the joint right here was slightly at wrong angle. I was getting intonation issues. Once I took the guitar back apart and hit it with the file just to change the angle just slightly, I was able to get things to work a lot better. But that's something that if they're doing a pre-cut guitar, that should be already taken care of for you. You shouldn't be needing to re-angle the neck slightly. Some pros for the kit: you have the ability to adjust things before you put in the finish on. So you're changing pickup locations, you're changing electronics, you're changing pickups, you're considering changing out bridges, neck or strap locations. You're able to change all those things before you do the finish, and that's nice. Does it play well? Does it accomplish the task that I want it to, which is producing a variety of sounds that with the basses I've previously had, didn't have access to the sounds? Yes, this is doing the sounds that I was missing from my repertoire, so I'm happy there. But yeah, for the general population, this is a bad kit in my opinion. Unless you're planning on just painting this thing black, black spray paint or something, and not really messing with their poly too much and whatnot, then it'll work out okay. But you'll still have to deal with intonation and setup issues with the instrument. In my opinion, the quality of this instrument at $200 for an unbuilt kit should be able to fight better a pre-built $400 Epiphone. I feel like that they should be in the same category basically, right? And I feel like due to the neck issues, this guitar is just never going to be there. Final thoughts for me with this kit is I'm happy with it. It took a lot of work, but it's good enough now. I'm not wanting to throw it in the trash can, so I'll save it and use it. But yeah, unless you have a ton of experience setting up guitars, working through problems, redoing finishes on guitars and things like that, I wouldn't recommend this for you. But if you feel experienced, you want a challenge, you can get this kit. The end result has some good sounds. So that's the quickest version of this video I could possibly make. Alrighty, have a good one.